we'll move right into, we'll do our rankings first. So last week Dylan started, so I'll start this week.
Okay.
And then we'll flip-flop next week. Okay, so I won't spend too much time on the bottom half. Maybe we'll give a little more in-depth. But as far as the bottom half goes, 17 through 14, I got Stanford, Wake, UVA, and Duke. I think out of that 4, Duke's the best one. Manny Diaz, first year there. I have no issue with Manny Diaz. He comes from being the DC at Penn State. He was the coach at Miami. Before that, they kind of just scapegoated him because Cristobal was available, so they kicked him out. Diaz wasn't even that bad there at Miami. They bring in Malik Murphy from Texas, so I like what they're doing quarterback play-wise. Just don't know what else they're going to have in that roster to really compete against some of the upper echelon teams in the conference. Where they were with Elko, can Diaz kind of keep that going a little bit? I think is going to be the big question. Maybe they upset a team or two, but I might see them competing for that 14 through 10 range. Yeah. Just kind of in a year, not expecting a whole lot. As far as 13 through 9 goes, I got Boston College, Bill O'Brien's first year up there.
Yep.
Pitt at 12. You get Cal at 11, Syracuse at 10, and then Georgia Tech at 9. Out of that group, Georgia Tech, who just got a 5-star actually commit today, an offensive lineman. So Brent Key's doing work there. They bring back Haynes King.
Yep.
They've a couple good weapons also on the outside. Defensively, they should be okay. I'll check real quick where they ranked defensively. I had it on my notes here. 1 second here. Defensively, they ranked 97th. Yeah. But, I think that they brought in a few good transfers. I think they'll be okay. The schedule, they do start off the year with FSU in Ireland, so maybe they pull off an upset there. Possibly. Don't think it'll happen, but you never know what happens across the pond. Right over there. Georgia State, then they go at Syracuse. They get VMI at Louisville. They have a lot of their tough games are on the road. They do get Miami and NC State at home. And then they play Notre Dame in Atlanta. Neutral site. So I'm not saying Georgia Tech's going to be like world beaters this year, but I do think they're going to be able to compete. You saw last year they were able to compete with Georgia. They beat Miami on the flukiest of fluke plays. So why not? They beat North Carolina last year. So I'm going to and they finished the year off right beating UCF. So I'm going to say that they're one of the better teams. I want to see more production out of Haynes King. There was too much inconsistency from that department. And can they make good old-fashioned hate relevant again? Is the great question. They probably won't, but
probably not this year.
No, but
maybe
Syracuse is another team I really I like. Syracuse, they bring in Fran Brown from Georgia. He's the head coach in that department, as I got to find them here. They bring in Kyle, or what's his face name? Kyle McCord. Sorry. They bring in Kyle McCord. They bring in some other transfers as well. I think Jackson Meeks comes in from Georgia. They bring in some other guys from all over. Syracuse has that Louisville-type schedule this year. Yeah. Ohio, Georgia Tech, bye. Stanford, Holy Cross, at UNLV, at NC State before their next bye. And then they're at Pitt, Virginia Tech, at Boston College, California, at Cal, UConn, Miami. What you didn't hear on that schedule was Florida State, Clemson. So you get the two big boys out of the way.
Yeah.
You have to go to Miami, which really isn't. That's like a neutral site game at this point. Outside of that, I mean, and then you have to, and you get Virginia Tech at home.
Yeah.
I mean, could they surprise some people? They got to get better offensively. They were 92nd in offense. Points per play, or they were 99th in total offense. Points per play, they were ranked 91st. So they just need to be more explosive offensively on the passing side. They ranked 116th. I think Kyle McCord's going to do that. And why not? I mean, defensively, they should be fine. They ranked 57th overall last year, and they bring in Fran Brown, who comes from Georgia, as one of the secondary coach.
Mm-hmm.
That should be an improved bunch.
Yeah.
Syracuse could be a team I could see sneak in maybe to that 8-6 range.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
or they do
what Louisville did and just go on a run and just go to the ACC title game.
Well, I don't know about that, but
Well, I mean, but the schedule's stacking up.
Yeah, the schedule's not bad for them.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's what I mean. Like, the only thing I like, though, is that the schedule fits right with them.
Yeah.
Especially for a first-year coach. I mean, that's like a first-year coach's dream. Not having to worry about Florida State. Not having to worry about Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
It sets up nice.
Yeah.
As far as the 8 through 5 range, I got UNC, Louisville, or SMU, Louisville, and NC State.
Yeah.
UNC, they bring in Max Johnson. They lose Drake May. You lose Johnson on the outside. Not Johnson. What's his name? One of their receivers. I can't remember his name. It's really messing me up now. Anyway, I'm going to move on now.
Sure.
They bring back Omarion Hampton, who's going to be one of probably the ACC's best running back.
Yeah.
So you're going to have good play there. They were really solid last year, and then they went on they beat Miami, then they lost the 2 inexplicable games to Virginia and Georgia Tech after starting the year 6-0. And then they finished the year losing the last 3.
Yeah.
They need to get better in that department. Defensively is where it's going to needs to get improved at. 75th over in scoring D. Total defense, they're like 97th. Yards per play, 65th. They were 93rd in the run D. And pass defense, they're like 96. I mean, it's just got to get better.
Yep.
So, and can Max Johnson carry that level that, the prior quarterbacks have? And
they had some
that's
good
going to be a question.
They had 2 NFL guys back to back.
Sam, you come off Drake May, Sam Howell. Can he keep that level going?
Yeah. So,
SMU, I think Rhett Lashley, the fighting Rhett Lashleys of SMU are going to be the one team that I think could really stir the pot out of the 3 newcomers. They do lose. What's his face? They lost. I don't even know. Never mind. I'm just going to pretend like I never said anything. Unprepared in that department. Unacceptable on my end. But what I am prepared to tell you is that Florida State comes to town September 28th.
Yep.
Could they keep that rolling? That's going to be the big game after TCU. Then they go to Louisville before a bye. So the tough games come, without a bye or anything in between, which is going to stink a little bit for them. I do want to think Florida State comes off a bye that week. So that's going to be kind of tricky there.
Yeah.
I mean, offensively, 8th in the country, 38 points a game. Can they keep that rolling? Preston Stone comes back. So that's going to be big time. He led the AAC in quarterback rating, threw for over 3,100 yards, 28 touchdowns, only 6 picks. They have a 3-back rotation that is a bunch of veterans. They bring back 8 starters and a bunch of them from the skill group position. Like I said, they have 3 backs that are all veterans. Could they kind of stir the pot here, as SMU usually does? They have done that in the AAC. Here we go. Now I have them at 6. NC State is one big question mark team, and them and like Virginia Tech. Dave Doran always has a good group.
Yeah.
Can he finally put it all together? It feels like NC State's always competing, but they don't have just that extra gear to get them over the last hurdle or two. They bring in Grayson McCall. Is that the missing piece? Because it's an upgraded quarterback from where they were last year. They are losing some guys. But they do have Kevin Concepcion, who is arguably one of the nation's best receivers. Big time. I just But do I think that they're going to be able to get over the hump? I don't know. I just think that there's 4 teams better than them at this rate. And that's why I put them there at 5. My number 4 team, and this is where it's going to be kind of funny right here for you. My number 4 team, I have Clemson.
Okay.
Clemson. So Clemson, the lack of the portal is still has to be a factor into this.
Yep.
I'm curious to see what Cade Klubnik does now, year 2 under Garrett Riley's offense.
Mm-hmm.
They do have some better playmakers now on the outside.
Yep.
I think that they're going to have some dudes who can finally step up to kind of like what those 2010s wide receiver classes did.
Yeah.
Which is going to be something they're going to need. Bryant Wesco is a wide receiver there who really got a lot of eyes in the spring game.
Mm-hmm.
He's a freshman receiver, and he will be playing.
Yeah.
That's going to be someone that has got to have to be used a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
Can they run the ball effectively enough? Because they didn't really last year. They ranked 43rd. Passing-wise, 52nd. The problem really was even when they finished 9-3 last year, they turned the ball over too much.
Yeah.
They
turned the ball over a lot.
They turned the ball over a bunch, and they lacked explosivity. They ranked 129th in explosive pass plays.
Yeah.
And they ranked 53rd in touchdown to interception ratio. So they needs to get better on that part.
Yeah.
Is it kind of tough to grade them after week 1? If it goes south, maybe not. But is this a team that's going to be 4-1 by the end of September, or are they going to be like 2-3 again? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So their schedule, Georgia, and then they get App State, which is never an easy team for anybody, never an easy opponent for anyone. But then they get a bye, but then NC State comes to town, and then they have Stanford, and then at Florida State, at Wake. And then they go to Virginia Tech November 9th, and then South Carolina, they get at home. Is that a team that's going to – I just don't think that's a team that's going to be competing for the ACC at the end of the year. They could be jockeying for a last-second playoff spot, but I just don't think they're going to beat Georgia. I don't think they're going to beat Florida State. I don't think they're going to beat Virginia Tech. I think Virginia Tech's going to be a real big sleeper this year that a lot of people are going to be able to see. I mean, and what happens if they lose? They go to Florida State and they're already, let's say they're 3-2.
Mm-hmm.
Or excuse me, they'd be 2-2.
Yeah.
So
they go 2-3.
Yeah. And you know they're not going to fire Dabo.
No, they don't fire Dabo.
And Klubnik's playing just mediocre ball. Like what does the conversation then become?
I mean, at that point, the conversation becomes if they don't win out, they're a disaster this year.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I mean? Like, it's like,
yeah.
And to give them the credit, after that beginning of the season, the schedule does get a little bit easier for them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, no offense, but at the end of the year, like, I don't think South Carolina is going to be anything special at all. In fact, I think there's a decent chance they don't have a head coach at the end of the year. But I think best case scenario for Clemson is they lose 2 games.
Yeah.
Worst case.
What they're going to need, they're going to need Phil Maffa to step up, running back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To help not put everything on Klubnik.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to need that defensive line. The defensive line's legit. Like they have dudes on that team that can be game wreckers. That's going to be a fascinating matchup. That's going to be one of the biggest matchups, I think, week 1.
Mm-hmm.
Is that Georgia front taking on that Clemson D line, because there's dudes on that team that probably could have started on those national title teams for Clemson. Like legit, like game wreckers. That's going to be a really fascinating one, because remember last time these 2 teams played, Georgia sacked, I believe it was 7 sacks. They got to Uyangale, and that was Georgia's D line. I mean, even Clemson's front got to Daniels, I want to say 3 or 4 times. I could be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I mean, which team, if Clemson's offense just gets neutralized and they just don't have anything, none of their outside playmakers are making plays.
Yeah.
Does that fall more on Klubnik's shoulder, or is that, again, Dabo's stubbornness to not use the portal. You know,
I guess
those are
that's
the
where the
questions you're gonna
dialogue
get
starts,
asked.
right? That's where the dialogue becomes like an issue.
For sure. All right. Moving on. My top 3. So I have Virginia Tech at number 3. And a lot of people will be like, whoa, you're crazy. Maybe I am. But Brent Pry comes in, a lot of expectations. They're going to be a really good running team this year. They will have one of the more sneaky athletic quarterbacks in the country. Trying to find. I just think that this is a team that can make some noise. I think offensively they're going to be good. Rushing offense, they ranked 23rd in the country last year.
Yep.
They ranked 57th in pass. They're averaging about 30 points a game. If they can just kind of string together some stuff, I mean, in this is where like also like the season, the schedule matches up well. They start the year with Vanderbilt, Marshall, Old Dominion, Rutgers, at Miami, at Stanford before their bye. That's not a bad first couple weeks. If they, I mean, Boston College, Georgia Tech, Syracuse, and then they get Clemson, and then that's it. Their toughest game is Clemson, and they get them at home.
Yeah.
You're telling me that's outstanding right there. So if they can beat Clemson, I think they can. This is a legit team that could possibly make it to the ACC title game. Like trying to see, they ranked 15th in the country in explosive rushing plays. Explosive pass plays, they were 61st. Returning production, 91% of their offense is returning. That's number 1 in the country. That right there is massive. And defensively, they get 77% back.
Yeah.
Of a team that went 2, 3. They went 6-6. But look at all the guys coming back though. And just think about now with that schedule, I think this is a team that can really make some noise. Can you imagine? Picture yourself. Just imagine, close your eyes, and just think about Virginia Tech undefeated hosting Clemson. Lane Stadium at night.
Crazy. Yeah.
I mean, we haven't seen Virginia Tech at that pinnacle since like Michael Vick was there. So can they get there? This would be the year I think they can get there. The schedule sets up really nice. Why not? They can't lose games though. They can't lose games to teams they should be beating. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, and against some of these bigger teams, they got to step up. I mean, last year they lost to Marshall, they lost to Rutgers, and they lost to Old Dominion. Or they beat Old Dominion, excuse me. They can't be losing games to Marshall. Kudos, sorry, Marshall. But like you can't lose to Marshall.
You can't lose to Marshall.
No. So if they just don't shoot themselves in the foot, I think they'll be all right. I mean, I really am high on this team. That number one, that production on offense coming back.
That's huge. That's huge because they, especially towards the end of that season, they were really putting it together on offense.
Yeah.
Like there was a couple of hiccup games. Like obviously the game against Florida State wasn't great for them. And there was obviously the Marshall, but near the end of that season, they were really starting to put things into gear. They were getting it. It looked like they actually hired a coach who could finally get them, obviously not to what they were once, back in the early 2000s and late 90s, but, in a more respectable position.
Yeah. So, I mean, the offensive line, they bring in 2 top 20 transfers. That also all the other guys returning. Kyron Jones comes back. He's going to be a dual threat guy using his legs. He had a 176-yard bowl game or a rushing game last year. He had 881 rushing yards last year. It was only behind Michael Vick's 200 yards that he had back in 2000.
Yeah.
And so if they can keep him up front or keep him protected well, and they just let him be him, and he can just make some plays in the air and not solely abuse it on his legs, look out.
Yeah.
All right. So finishing up here, I got Miami and Florida State.
Yep.
Florida State, I think they're going to win it all in the ACC. It's strictly the fact that I just think that that's a better program, the more established program. I think Uyangale's gonna have to play better. He's gonna have to play the best season he's ever played.
Yes.
It's his final season, so why not? But there's been so many. His career has been more question marks than actual like competence. I think.
Yeah.
We're like, just let him. Like you can just send him off. He's gonna do his thing. We don't have to worry about it. Where it's more like, I have to always be on like edge of what his next pass is gonna do. What's that next decision gonna be?
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's really good, and a lot of times it's bad. And I think being at Florida State, I think that's going to help some. Florida State does they do bring back 56% of their offense, which is going to be good. Offensively, though, they're going to have to be able to, I think, generate explosive plays. Who's going to step up on the outside? After you lose Johnny Wilson, you lose you lose Keon Coleman, you lose the tight end's name.
You know
what I'm talking about.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
But
I will say, to give Florida State the credit there, is that they've been really good in recruiting.
Yes.
Obviously, they've made great use of the transfer portal and replacing guys. And they got a couple guys, younger guys who are ready to step up, who made small impacts last year, but, are athletic enough that maybe they could obviously not be what Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson were, but kind of pick up that production that they're losing at those spots.
Yeah, I mean, so they do have Lawrence Toafili coming back, which is going to be big because remember he was more of like the
like third down back
behind Trey Benson.
Yeah.
Roydell Williams comes in, so you're going to have that nice 1-2 punch there at running back.
Yep.
I need to see who's going to be able to step up here. I mean, you have guys. I'm looking right here. Ja'Kai Douglas comes in. He's the only returner, though, with 10-plus catches last year from that last year's team. So a lot of new faces. You have Malik Benson comes in.
Yep.
And Jaylen Brown from LSU. So you're going to have guys. You have some nice transfers coming in. But can Uyangale now elevate his game? Because
I think
they're going to need it. And it's no walk in the park, no matter how much we'll laugh about Georgia Tech. Just because kind of where they've been recently.
Yeah.
I mean, again, he cannot go in there and just think that they're just going to win that game. Because Georgia Tech will just keep that a ball game. And then before you know it, it's a 21-17 game in the fourth.
Yeah.
You're kind of just hanging around with a team you have no business with. So,
yeah. I think
go
ahead. So at the wide receiver position, the guys to really look out for is going to be sophomore Hakeem Williams. Played a little bit of time last year, but he is a monster, 6'2", 215, big guy, wide receiver. And then the speedster, Destin Hill. That guy, I think we got to look out for. Also sophomore, 6 feet tall, 195 pounds. Those are two guys who I think are going to be the big numbers guys for the year. They're not going to look at it, starting the year. They're not going to be the ones who we're talking about right away. But I think overall, they're going to be the ones that are going to have the biggest impact.
Yeah. Defensively, I think that's really where we're also going to see that D line. You lose a lot. You lose First. You lose Deloach. You lose what's the other big guy in the middle? Brisk. You lose him. You bring back though Peyton. Patrick Peyton. You bring in guys like Earl Little.
Yep.
Trying to look who else comes back here. Let's see here. Anyway, though, Fentrell Cyphus comes in.
Yep.
And so the secondary, I think, is going to be fine. I think will they be able to make get that production defensively because they're only bringing back 57% of their defense, and that is a lot of them were those top end guys. So we'll see where they end up there because they ranked 18th in the country last year in scoring defense, which was really good, just under the 20-point mark. Explosive rushing was the one issue at 109th they ranked, but I think that they'll be all right. The Uyangale part is really what's going to get to me.
Yeah,
because if they can kind of figure him out and he can play well, this team will go really far. It'll be a playoff team for sure, and it'll win the ACC. How I think it will.
Yeah.
They don't. then the team I have behind him, Miami, will, I think, step up there. Miami is my number 2 then. I won't spend too much time here, but Cam Ward comes in. I think he's the best quarterback in the conference. I think that he comes in for Washington State. I think he's one of the better decision makers, better just athletic quarterbacks you'll see this year. And you're really going to see it, I think, now that he's finally on a team that has guys on the outside, has good weapons all over. And Cristobal has finally built a program that is ready to roll.
Yeah.
The young guys on defense are finally, I think, going to step up now. And offensively, you bring in Damian Martinez from Oregon State. That's an A+ transfer.
Yeah.
You get Restrepo back on the outside with the other guys. That week 1 game at Florida will tell you everything you need to know, because either he's going to get no lickety split, like it's going to be fine, or he's going to kind of maybe struggle, and now you have question marks.
Yeah.
If they can win, I think even if they lose that game, but he plays well, I would still feel fine.
Yeah.
It's if they fail, if they lose and it's like a 27-10 game and it's just not good.
Turnovers and
yeah,
bad communication, penalties that look bad. If it's one of those kind of games, then I don't think Miami's doing anything this year. But if they lose like a shootout or a 30-point, like,
I think that's more questions on the defense than it is. Like, but I just think like guys like Ruben Bain, you have Francisco Mauigoa coming back, myself Powell on the outs back end.
Yep.
These are guys that like are legit guys, ready to step in and roll, that have been there in the system already for the year or two.
Yeah.
I really like Miami. I know I'm probably buying into the hype some. I don't have them winning.
I don't blame you though. That's the thing, is I don't blame you because
I just think that this is Miami, Tennessee, Missouri, maybe like, or Oklahoma State, Utah. Like, these are the teams I think that are ready. Oregon are ready to take that. Who's going to take that next step?
Yeah.
So it was Texas last year. That Tennessee team for 2022, although they won the Orange Bowl that year, they took that big step.
Yeah.
Can Miami finally do it? They were playing really well last year. Turnovers killed them. Dumb penalties killed them.
Yep.
Injuries killed them. Can they finally just put it together? And Cristobal's going to have to do it, because he can't be given this many chances without finally putting production on the field.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I think Miami fans are tired playing Pinstripe Bowl and want to see playoff. That's what I'm going to say.
They want to win a bowl game.
Yeah.
They haven't done that in a long time.
For sure. But yeah.
I think you had a great list. I'll come out and say it right before I give mine. We have a lot of the same ones. There's a couple ones I disagree with you on, but I'm going to get into that in a second. Any other words you have to say about your list? Are there any teams on there?
No. I think that's I think Louisville's going to be a sneaky one too.
Yep.
Second year for Jack Brom. That I mean, this feels like if you take FSU maybe out and like Miami out, 3 through like 10 could kind of really just fight for whoever wants to be next.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I can see. Yeah, I know what you're saying there. Yeah, 100%.
I just think that there's FSU, Miami, and then there's kind of like a little drop, Clemson, and then like everyone else.
Yeah,
but that's even then, like I have Tech ahead of Clemson. So
yeah,
but yeah, you can get rolling on yours.
So I'll start right away. At number 17, I have Wake Forest, and I think they're going to be the worst team in the ACC by far this year. Just personally, they ranked dead last in the ACC in almost every single offensive category, and only 60% of that offense is returning. They didn't really improve either. Looking at them in transfer portal, they finished 113th, and they finished 52 in recruiting. They're not really doing anything. If anything, I think this team's just going to get worse every year until they fire Dave Clawson. They ranked almost dead last, and they ranked 69th out of the 70 Power 5 schools when it came to pass defense. I mean, they're just bad. Like, they're just genuinely really bad, and I think they're going to be really almost unappealing to watch this year. I don't think it's going to be close. Wake Forest is my last place team. Number 16, I have Virginia, primarily just because I don't think they have a very good coach in Tony Elliott.
Yeah.
I think he's really bad. I think that just genuinely they struggle against everybody. Looking at their schedule, their games that they won, they barely won. The games that they lost big. They had one good game this year against Miami where they lost, and the game against North Carolina where they squeaked out a win. But like, they lost 42-14 to Maryland in embarrassing fashion. They got killed by Virginia Tech 55-17 in a rivalry game where it looked like they didn't even want to be there. This team is just a disaster. And I have nothing positive to say about them at all. Like, genuinely, I think when you're really celebrating the fact that we beat an FCS school at home is one of your big wins of the year, you got nothing to do. You're not going up at all.
No.
My number 15, I got Stanford. I don't think Stanford's very good either, but I think Stanford, just because they played better against more quality opponents than a lot of the two teams at the bottom of the ACC I had did. You know, they played closer against Arizona. They played they beat Washington State. They played Washington decently close. They, you know, outside of the bad losses they had, but they played good teams. You know what I mean? They played Oregon. They played Washington. They played Notre Dame. They played Arizona. You know what I mean? Like, they played some solid teams last year, and they didn't do terrible.
Yeah.
So I would give them that edge in that regard. But I also think they're going to be terrible. Just to be honest with you, they'll be bad too.
Yeah.
Then I got Duke at 14. Forgettable. I'll be honest with you. It's Manny Diaz's first year. You know, I'm not going to judge him too hard on his first year. He's got a lot to deal with building a new roster since a lot of the guys have transferred out that Mike Elko really used to build that program up. You know, he's not going to have Riley Leonard as his quarterback. A lot of his defensive guys are gone. It's going to be a tough first year, but I still think they're going to be better than those bottom three schools. So 14 for Duke. 13, I got Pitt. They're just kind of in a weird position where they're just a couple years away from building something. They don't have a great quarterback at the moment. They just need something. I mean, they have Phil Jurevich. Is he coming back next year?
Jurkovich?
Yeah. See, he was supposed to play, but I feel like he barely got even that. He got benched at one point, right?
Yeah, he was not good last year. I do think he got pulled at some point.
Yeah. I mean, they outside of they played a really good game against Florida State where they lost, but they played them pretty tough up until near the end. They were kind of just lackluster last year. They had a good game against Louisville, and outside of that, it was kind of just a rough year for them. But I just don't think they're that great, but they're not as bad. Again, like I've said for Duke, they're not as bad as these. Like, the bottom three are truly bad. Like, they're truly some bad football teams. Like, they're bottom of the Power Five. Outside of that, I think everybody else is like, they can make a bowl game. That's how I feel. You know what I mean? So, 13 for Pitt. Number 12, I have Boston College. Boston College, they got a brand new head coach and Bill O'Brien, who at the college level, Bill O'Brien has actually been pretty successful. He's not exactly one of the worst guys around. And last year, Boston College wasn't that bad. I mean,
no.
They went 6-6. They went to a bowl game. They won their bowl game against SMU. They had a solid quarterback in Thomas Castellanos. He had some good moments, more of a lightning in a bottle, kind of dual threat guy, but better than what they've had for the past couple of years. And I think this team could be solid in a couple of years. It's a first year for Bill O'Brien, so I wouldn't expect too much. But, they played great against Florida State last year in a close loss. They played Georgia Tech hard and they beat them. They played some pretty good teams and they won or kept them close for most of the year. It was a pretty good year for them. It's kind of surprised when they fired Hafley. But, oh, no, wait, Hafley left. I'm dumb. What am I saying?
And he went to Green Bay.
Yeah, he became the offensive coordinator. I don't know why I thought he got fired. But I think they'll be fine this year. I mean, they're not going to be anything special, but they'll be fine again.
Yeah, BC is going to be BC.
Number 11, I got Cal. Cal is just – they're Cal. I think they'll be better now that they're in the ACC than they were the Pac-12 because they would always get the most brutal schedules in the Pac-12,
They travel. They travel them in like Stanford. I think Cal travels farther. Like they travel like more miles that really you could circle around the globe like 3 times. I think.
Yeah.
Something stupid like that. Like they travel more miles than any NFL team will this year. And it's just remarkably how like weird that is.
Mm-hmm. You know, I think Cal is just, you know, they're fine. They're not going to do anything special. I mean, I think it's a great little note that book you gave me had is that they are 3 miles. The university is 3 miles from the Pacific Ocean, but they are in the Atlantic Coast Conference.
Figures, right?
Just a little fun fact, but they're fine. They're not going to do anything crazy this year. I think they'll just be a middle of the road. You know, maybe they'll squeak out a game and get to a bowl game this year, but you know, they'll be whatever. And then at number 10, I have Syracuse. Syracuse is Syracuse. They're really good at like doing nothing, and then you know they're good at winning first couple games when they play nobody, and then falling apart the second they play somebody. Obviously, they have a brand new head coach, and they got some good recruiting actually with this head coach compared to Dino Babers. Who's their coach again now?
Fran Brown. He was the secondary coach at Georgia.
They got some good secondaries at Georgia. I don't know if they could do a 1-year turnaround, though. I think it will take a little bit of time.
I just think that the schedule helps them out. It's a schedule break for sure. Like they just not having to play like Florida State or Clemson.
Yeah.
Is going to be big time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's massive for them. I mean, they got to a bowl game last year, too. Like, they weren't horrible. They did get murdered by USF, though. 45-0 is insane.
Hey, listen, Golich and the boys. Don't disrespect that. All right, we have some USF people in here.
Number 9, I have SMU. I'm a little bit lower in SMU than most people, just because it's their first year in the ACC, and just with the way SMU has always been, it's that they will destroy teams in the Group of 5, but then Power 5 teams, they end up kind of
lackluster in it.
Yeah, you know, even like TCU last year, they looked like they didn't even want to be there for half the game,
and that's a rivalry.
Yeah, exactly. They play them again this year, I'm pretty sure. That they're going to have a wake-up call to start the year. It's going to be weird for them. And I think they'll be fine, but this is the first year I don't see much of them for this year. Number 8, I have Georgia Tech. I like Georgia Tech a lot this year. I really like Brett Key. I really like Haynes King as a quarterback. And I think they made some big strides this past year in just improving the team. I mean, I think it's a good way to point it out is that they didn't have a bad game this whole year. The first time in a long time, their worst game was against Georgia, and they didn't get blown out of the water.
Yes.
That's as horrible as it sounds. That is
and
massive
was that
for Georgia Tech.
Was there some questionable officiating in that game? There was.
Yeah,
but to keep it within the 1 score mark. Good step in the right direction.
If they would have kept it in 2 scores, I still would have been like, that's
now what they do now this year, because they got to go to Athens. It's going to be a night game.
It's going to be a lot harder this year.
Yes, Black Friday game.
Yeah, like I said, if they can keep it within 2 scores against Georgia in Athens on the dude, you're making strides at Tech if you could do that.
I want to say that line's out already. I'm going to check.
I guarantee it's probably like 21 points. Like if I was to guess right now, it's probably like 20 points.
Cocktail Party is a 21-point favorite. Swing of Georgia. Nope, not out yet.
Okay. I think it's probably going to be like 23, 24 and a half. It's going to be bigger, maybe. But I think I like Tech. I like Tech a lot this year. I don't think they're going to be crazy, but I like Tech. Number 7, I got North Carolina. North Carolina, I think it's just going to be in a weird position because they don't have a quarterback that's solid. They got Max Johnson, but, you know.
We've seen ups and downs with.
Yeah. And honestly, when it comes to them, they're an offensive juggernaut with a lackluster defense. And I think they got a worse offense. So, you know, I don't think that helps their case. I think if they had at just a slightly better quarterback, they'd probably be at like my number 4 or 5 spot. And I think they'd make a legitimate conversation of competing for an ACC like spot in the championship, not the game itself. I don't think they're winning ACC. Yeah. But if they had a slightly better quarterback, I think they could make like a good run. But just this year with Max Johnson, I just don't trust him as their quarterback. Left-handed guys for me, I just can't do it.
Although Penix, what about Michael Penix last year, Dylan?
He was pretty incredible, but you only have one of those guys like a decade. You know what I mean? You had Tim Tebow and then Michael Penix Jr. When was the last time you could really say a left-handed guy was really lighting up the world?
When
was the last time a left-handed guy started in the NFL?
Michael Vick.
Was it Vick or was it Tebow who started last?
Probably Vick. No,
yeah, it tells you.
Well, that tells you though.
Yeah, it tells you though that I got a reason not to trust him.
Right.
So my number 6 team is Louisville. I think they're just going to keep doing what they did last year. They're going to keep improving. I like Jeff Brom as a head coach. I think he did great things at Purdue. And I feel really bad for those Purdue fans for losing that guy. Obviously, he couldn't take him over the hump with Purdue, but I don't think anybody could ever do that, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I think that program will never win anything important. But I do think that they're going to be fine this year. They're going to be pretty good. I think, like you said earlier, everybody in that like 4 to like 10 spot, I think is around the same quality of team. Mm-hmm. You can kind of move them around anywhere. Just depends on how you feel with like their schedule more than their like actual play. But I think Louisville will be fine. And then number 5, I have NC State. I think NC State's going to be, NC State. They're going to be pretty good, but they're not going to win 10 games because I don't think they can ever do that, to be honest with you. The biggest problem they had last year was their offense. They just struggled at times to score or move the ball downfield at all.
I think that was more just quarterback play because they had what's his face, lefty.
Makes sense.
Makes sense. They just struggle too much inconsistency at the quarterback play. I mean, and then they got just Kansas State pulled away in the Pop-Tart Bowl last year. But a real big upgrade, I think, at quarterback this year, which is going to help them a lot, especially that punch with Concepcion now.
Yeah.
It's going to have a real big, nice quarterback throwing in the ball.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be an upgrade.
Yeah. No, I think they'll be fine. My number 4 team, I have Virginia Tech. I know you were a little bit higher on Tech than I am. I'm still very high on Tech. I just wonder when it comes to like because I'll say right now, 3 is Clemson, 4 is Virginia Tech. The reason I have Clemson over them is just because of a talent acquisition and what's already on the roster. I think Tech is really good, but there is a talent difference in some of those Clemson guys, especially in the trenches.
Yep.
I did like a lot of the things Tech did last year, especially in like that Virginia game. That was crazy. That was some of the I'll tell you right now. That site you gave me, right, where they're ranking these games, Virginia Tech played 4 of their best 5 games in the last 5 years last year.
And they've
done.
Yeah, what does that tell you?
That they're improving, that they're doing lots of things in the right direction, that they're doing some things.
They're doing the things the right way.
Mm-hmm. They started last year pretty weak, but then they turned everything around. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like they came out, they made Pittsburgh look bad. They beat up on Wake Forest. They beat up on Syracuse. They beat up on Boston College. They beat up on Virginia, and they took Tulane to town. Like, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, they turned around that season. They really lit up things. I feel really confident in Tech possibly winning 10 games this year. Like, I think they could do it. Like, they have a roster that can win them games, but they just don't have the talent for me to be in that top 3.
I think that they can legitimately start the year off they can go 6-0.
Yeah,
going
I think
into
they can do it. I think
I legit see a path where they are 8-0 going into the Clemson game. Mm-hmm. The game that really would circle is going to be that Miami game, that September 27th game.
Mm-hmm.
If they can get past that,
because
they should be 4-0 going into it.
Yes.
They get past that, they get Georgia Tech and Clemson at home. They have to go to Syracuse before the Clemson game.
Mm-hmm.
But before, I mean,
I'm
as
in the
long as I
mindset
think Tyron
that
Jones plays well and they don't shoot
Mhm.
themselves in the foot, they
Yes.
should be a team.
Mhm.
Playoff
I
team,
think
maybe?
there's 3 games on this schedule that you should circle, and it's at Miami, Georgia Tech, and Clemson. Those are the 3 games that I think will be the most telling for their season, right? Because they can beat Miami, beat Tech, and then go to Clemson with worst case scenario 1 loss, right?
Yeah.
That game is going to be insanity.
Yes.
That's going to be the biggest Virginia Tech game in over a decade.
And they've been waiting, searching for a game.
Oh yeah,
where they can host and legitimately have a chance.
Yeah.
There's been some teams in the past few years where they bring in a big time opponent, but it's just Clemson went in there a few times, Notre Dame did, and they both went in there and kind of took care of business. I think this is the year where you could see they could finally do it, where they could finally get that landmark win that they've been looking for at Lane Stadium.
Yeah. No, and then I think they'll be good this year. And then obviously I said it a second ago, my number 3 team is Clemson. I think Clemson's good. They're just in a problem where they just are slowly falling off. It's a sad decline to watch for Clemson fans, I imagine. But you're watching this team. They're not winning as many games as they were. Every year they've gotten lower and lower and lower in recruiting rankings. They're not picking up anybody in the transfer portal. This is just a team that is falling off of the pedestal they once were. This is not a bad football team. This is a very good football team. This is a top 25 program in the country. This is a team that's not going to lose a lot of games. Their home schedule, they're probably going to win every game on their home schedule. You know what I mean? This is a team that, if you're a Clemson fan, they're going to win 9-10 games. They're going to be not a bad team. This is not a bad football team, but this is not Clemson in 2017. This is not Clemson that was able to beat up on Tua Tagovailoa at Alabama. You know what I mean? They still have great guys on that defense, but just the past 5 years, they have not recruited on offense anywhere nearly as well, or more importantly, developed those guys to become what they, to become top guys. They've gone from getting top 3 classes in the country to 11 and 3rd in the ACC. They're getting beat out by Florida State and Miami in a lot of respects when it comes to recruiting, talent acquisition, retaining coaches long term. I mean, this is a program that went from, they had one defensive coordinator for about a decade. They had one offensive coordinator for 5 years. This is a program that did not lose those kind of guys. And on the offensive side, they have had 3 different guys in the last 4 years. And that's big. As dumb as it sounds, the turnover is killing them on
they haven't found stuff. They just haven't found that consistency that they were able to have for so many years.
I don't see great things from them this year. I think they'll be fine. They're not making the playoff though. That's what I'll say right now. I don't think they're making the playoff. I don't think they're going to the ACC championship.
No.
My number 2 team. Oh no!
I would just finish up saying that D line is going to have to play well. Like I said, they have Peter Woods. You get Barrett Carter. What did I say? I said RJ Mickens and TJ Parker. These guys are going to have to be the guys that set the tone and wreak havoc, because that's what's going to have to happen. I think field position and smart quarterback play is what's really going to have to help Clemson this year.
You put up the numbers right now. They hired Garrett Riley last year, right, to fix their offense, and statistically, it got worse.
It did not start off very well.
No, it didn't. And to be honest with you, at no point in the year did it really improve either. They had a couple of bright spots, like the Georgia Tech game, the Kentucky Bowl game, but that Kentucky Bowl game, they just stopped giving up points. You know what I mean? They're just in a bad spot right now. And I would not be surprised if in a year, 2 or 3 years, this is a team you see that just completely falls off. That Clemson, you know what I mean? This is what a team looks like when it's slowly losing its edge it had on everybody else.
I will say before you move on, falling off means 9-3 or 8-4. Sign me up. I'll say that.
I don't think when I say that low, I don't mean that low. I mean this is a team that could slowly keep falling.
If it just shows you that if they use the portal,
they would be in a fantastic position right now. If they use the portal to supplement their problems at wide receiver and because they've had some guys, but they needed to pick up this
they haven't when they've needed playmakers. There's been playmakers available in the portal that they just don't go after. So
and it blows my mind because if you look at them statistically, they have had great guys on their defense all over the field. Every position on defense, they have been able to recruit and develop guys into stars. And then on the offensive side of the ball, they can't get anybody. It's been bewildering because this is a program that had 2 first-round quarterback picks, wide receiver picks off the charts, offensive line, running backs, every position they were getting guys drafted in the first, second, third rounds, right?
Yep.
Now, I got to be honest with you, I don't think a single guy on that Clemson offense is going to get a top 100 draft pick because they just don't have those guys right now. It's insane. They do, the bright spot for them is they do have a lot of returning production, so guys with experience who keep getting better. You know what I mean? But I'm not very high on Clemson. But moving on, my number 2 team is Miami, and Miami is just they have done the best possible thing for themselves. They have acquired so much talent. They have gotten such great recruiting cycles, transfer portal. They've taken so much advantage of, probably outside of Florida State, more advantage than almost anybody else in the country, where they've, picked up the guys they needed. They supplemented positions. They finally grabbed a guy at quarterback who can make plays without the help of weapons around him, that he can kind of take the game into his own hands, which is big for them because, they had a guy who couldn't stop turning the ball over last year. You know what I mean? You got a guy who, this won't, hopefully, if everything goes right for them, it won't be as big of an issue.
I agree there.
And, they got a lot of good guys on defense, especially their defensive line. There's a lot of good guys on Miami. Their offensive line's got some solid guys in there too. I think they're going to be good. I just don't know if they can just. It's a lot harder to actually make that jump than it seems. You know what I mean? They went out and they got all these guys. I'd love to see if they could do it because for me as a Florida State fan, a good Miami and a good Florida State is good football. That's just great football to watch.
You haven't seen even Florida State. It's just been the state of Florida. You would like to see the 3 big teams.
Yeah.
Where Florida State, Miami are good enough to where recruits in the state are wanting to stay in state.
Yeah.
Because now what you've seen, because all those teams really in the last 10 years, well, not 10 years, we'll say the last 5 years, just have been so lackluster. Where Georgia, LSU, your Clemsons, your Alabamas, they're all just kind of coming in to the state and just picking whoever they want. Remember, I saw something like the 2017 Bama team. I think that won it all. Like their whole secondary was all from the state of Florida. I mean, just like that shouldn't be ever something happening.
No,
you know what I mean? We're like,
not when
all of those guys are staying or leaving the state.
So not when you have 3, not just Power 5 programs, but 3 historically good Power 5 programs. You shouldn't ever let those guys get out. You can't let those guys get out of state. And it's, with Florida State returning to prominence and, hopefully Miami doing the same this year, I would imagine they're able to keep more guys in state going forward. But at this point, they got to do something about that. But moving on to the number 1 spot, me and you both agree on this. Florida State, they're just continuing what they've been doing. They went out and they got a great recruiting cycle again. Top 15 in the country. They got a top 10 transfer class too, number 7. They picked up a lot of positions where they needed to replace guys who left. Of the schools in the ACC, They have one of the more tougher schedules because they play Clemson, they play at Miami, they play at Notre Dame, they play Florida. They play a little bit tougher than a lot of the other ACC schools, especially with Florida and Notre Dame on the out of conference side of things. But I still think worst case scenario, they lose 2 games this year for them. They just their coaching staff is too good. Their players are really, really good. I feel very confident that this is a team that even if they don't win the ACC, they're gonna get into the playoff with one of the at-large bids.
Yeah.
Just because of the way that Florida State plays football is very much that they're gonna beat teams up. They have very large guys, especially on the offensive line of side. They got some really good offensive linemen, some good defensive linemen. Their secondary, they got some guys. Fentrell Cypress is a guy who could probably be this year end up an All-American. He's got a preseason All-ACC guy. I think this team is going to be good. They're going to win the ACC, in my opinion. I don't really have much more to say about that. I mean, they're just really solid. They're continuing to do exactly what they needed to do.
Yeah, I think they're going to either lose 2 games or they're going to just have a point to prove from what happened last year. Yeah, outside of the happened in the Orange Bowl, but and just kind of maybe just really stick it. But again, it all falls back on because I would rather have Jordan Travis than I would DJU.
Yeah.
So can DJU put it together? That's what's really going to be the big question mark.
And I think the big question mark for me is, will they revert to what they were playing before Travis's arm became, as confident as they became in Travis's arm, where they more relied on, play action and, more on running the ball because they have some good running backs in there too.
Yeah, it's good. I feel like you're going to have to see a lot more like the RPO maybe kind of game.
Yeah, but that's what I wonder. Are they going to lean on that, or do they feel confident in DJU's arm? Which
like
maybe
a
they do.
fourth and let's say big like you're I don't know, you're at Notre Dame. I don't know what week that is. November 9th.
I need to pause real quick.
November 9th, you're at Notre Dame. It's 4th and 5. And, you need, let's say not 4th. It's 4th and 3. You're down 4. So you need to get going. Do you trust DJU to make a play, throw in the football, or would you rather run it? Like that's what it's really going to be. Yeah. Because, some people would say I'd rather have faith in my running backs.
Yeah.
Because I've just seen too much inconsistency where he's just not going to make the right play, or it's just not going to be a good throw.
Yeah.
And they're not going to get it. So I think that is where we're at with him. I think they're going to go 10-2. I think that I could see a spot where they lose to Miami and Notre Dame, but they turn around and beat Miami in the ACC title game. That's what I really think might happen.
I could see that, or
that would be the most realistic thing for me because I do think they're a playoff team, honestly, one way or another. But like I say, they either do that or they just kind of run through the schedule. Yeah, it's not the easiest schedule from an ACC standpoint, but it's certainly one that is.
It's not one of the hardest
doable for Florida State.
Yeah. It's very doable for Florida State. Like I said, the only thing when it comes to like ACC schedules is that they do play a little bit tougher out of conference because of the Notre Dame game, the Florida game. They play.
They go to
Memphis
Ireland
at home. They go to Ireland.
Play Georgia Tech. So
they don't take it. They don't fly after that too. They play Boston College immediately at home.
Yeah, and that stretch right there. They get the Clemson game bye, but then it's at Duke, at Miami, North Carolina home, and then at Notre Dame for the next bye. So that stretch right there could be something to look ahead to. All right. Heading in now to the home stretch of this episode, we will just kind of run off here. Our ACC champs, quarterback, best matchup of the year.
Yeah.
What else? We have sleeper team and best player. So we're going to do with that. Won't spend too much whole time doing it because we kind of went through the the rankings. And all the teams like that. So ACC prediction. I think we both have Florida State.
Yep.
And we have them beating Miami, right?
Yes. Yeah. Me and you both agree with that one right there.
Yes. Sleeper team. I have Virginia Tech. I think Virginia Tech's schedule sets up where they can go 8-0 before they hit Clemson.
Yeah.
And I think that they're going to be really good defensively. Remember, he came from Penn State as the DC there. So and Penn State's always got a good defense. They were pretty good defense last year.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I think they're going to be really good this year. That returning production is going to be huge. Give me Virginia Tech. Who's yours?
Yeah. Mine's Georgia Tech. I think they just, they're improving a lot this year. They've done a lot. Their schedule is a little bit harder than most of the other teams this year, but I think with the way they've improved, this schedule is very much, they could win 8-9 games on this schedule. Their hardest are obviously FSU, Georgia, and Notre Dame, but they get Notre Dame at a neutral site, kind of Atlanta.
Yes.
Whatever with that. But, I still think they got a very good chance to win a good amount of games this year.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to be – I don't think they're a top 5 team, but
no, I don't think so either. But a team that went from, just a couple of years ago, we were talking about Georgia Tech as the worst Power 5 school in America. To me, saying, they could break into the top 6 of the ACC realistically. It's not a crazy sentence to say. Is very much huge for them.
For sure. All right, we'll move on to best matchup of the year. I have week 9, October 26th, Florida State at Miami. Both those teams, expect both of them to be very solid teams. Runner-up to that was probably Clemson, Virginia Tech. But I think both these teams are going to be really good and possibly an ACC title preview.
Yeah.
Right here. How many Miami fans show up is going to be the great other question, I think, out of everything.
Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah, that's the big question. I would say Clemson at Florida State. I would say the number one is obviously Miami. Florida State's the biggest game of the season for the conference in general. They don't want to say the same one as you, though. I want to switch it up a little bit. Say Clemson at Florida State's a big one, big one. And then the end of the year, the NC State versus UNC will be a good one, too.
Big time. All right. Best quarterback, I have Cam Ward.
I agree.
Self-explanatory there.
I don't think that's a conversation. I think we both agree Cam Ward will be the best player for sure quarterbacks.
And then best player-wise, I picked Amarian Hampton or Kevin Concepcion. Amarian Hampton led the ACC last year with over 1,500 yards. That was 5th in the country. He had over 250 rushing attempts. He was 6th in the conference and rushing per yards, but number 1 with 15 touchdowns. So I think he's going to be the best running back in the conference, and then maybe the best wide receiver in the country is Concepcion, who's 2nd in receiving touchdowns. He was. This is with mediocre quarterback play too. So 5th in the conference in receiving yards. He had over 1,100 yards from scrimmage. That was 6th in the conference. And like I said, 71 receptions. This is big time production coming back. He's going to be a top receiver next year in the draft coming up, probably.
Yeah.
Look out. I think McCall and him are going to put some numbers up.
Yeah, I think I agree with you with Amarian Hampton. I think the ACC is a little bit weird this year when it comes to it. I mean, the ACC Player of the Year was Cam Ward, but I mean, Cam Ward, I want to see him play a little bit before I want to give him the top spot of all players in the conference. Outside of that, there's a couple guys who I think will be pretty good. Obviously, I think Grayson McCall might be pretty crazy at NC State, depending on what he's able to do with that offense. What's that Clemson lineman's name?
Peter Woods?
I think so. I think that's – I forget exactly his name, but, I think he could easily shoot up to be a first-round pick, defensive lineman, another Clemson all-timer. But I got to go for more on Hampton. I just think he's going to be the top player just overall.
I think Damian Martinez is a sneaky one too. Remember how good he was at Oregon State?
Yeah.
And now he's coming to Miami, which is a much better, better area, better weather, better team overall than what he was at before. So he might be able to put some numbers up as well. So I would look out for Damian Martinez, and especially against that Florida Gator defense. He might be able to put up some numbers. Just saying, guys.
We'll see. We'll see. That game's coming up quick.
2 weeks out. But that